I'm going to overlay on top of this curve the impact if the entire country applied this to the, in all states. Overlaying it on this, and here is the result. It's less than 1/100th of a degree over 100 years, with a lot of pain and agony along the way with higher priced cars and all that kind of stuff. So, not only was it negligible, if the entire world adopted this, it's only 3/100ths of a degree. We can't measure that. How can you ever say you did something to a system when you can't even measure it to that level? In fact, global temperatures that we measure in our place go up and down by more than that day to day. This is such a tiny amount. So, in other words, this law will have no effect. Now, the judge ruled in favor of the states and said, states, you have the right to apply this law in the states. That the federal government must let you apply this law if you want to, but he did put in the decision. Plaintiff's expert Dr. Christie estimated that implementing the regulations across the entire United States would reduce global temperature by about 1/100th of a degree by 2100. Hansen, this is Jim Hansen who testified opposite me, did not contradict the testimony. I mean, my numbers were bulletproof. The judge was saying, in effect, you can do what you want, you have the legal right to, but you're not going to make any difference on the climate. Well, what would make a difference? Well, I looked at some energy options, and this is just how many watts per meter squared do you get out of these different kinds of energies if you add up all the space? I mean, if you have a coal-fired power plant that has docks, and a mine somewhere, add up all that space. How many joules, how many watts do you get per meter squared? And you can see here that biomass burning, wind, and solar are, first of all, wind and solar are yellow there because they're non-dispatchable. You don't get it when you want it. Although it was pretty windy when I drove out to Drumheller yesterday, I thought, well, maybe out here. You can get a little bit, but you can see there the area expanse is just huge that you need to get a kilowatt. Coal and natural gas a lot. The fellow who did this study didn't include nuclear, so I just threw up a number just as a guess. But now you see the coal nuclear centralized plants are 100 to 1,000 times more efficient in terms of space. And if you're concerned about environmental space, this is the way you would want to go. Well, let's build, what could make a dent? Let's build 1,000 nuclear power plants, 1.4 gigawatts, and put them online by 2020. That's not going to happen. No way in the world that can happen. Our presidential candidate, John McCain, campaigned on the issue of 45 nuclear power plants. We might see 12 kind of in the process now of being thought about in the United States. But let's just build 1,000. It's a model after all. And let's do this problem again. Here is the the temperature rate, the IPCC says, and this would what happened with 1,000 nuclear power plants, which, by the way, is very similar to the bills being considered in our Congress to cut emissions 80%. How that's going to happen, I have no idea. And neither do they, by the way. But it's basically undetectable. Well, we can detect it out to 100 years at 0.15 if climate models are correct in their sensitivity. Now, we've already showed evidence they're way oversensitive, so that number should be even smaller, a lot smaller. Well, the point there is the emissions of carbon dioxide are huge in the world, and the things that we are talking about changing are just fiddling at the edges, or as I said to someone, spitting in the ocean. That's all that amounts to. So the main points are, without energy, life is brutal and short, and proposed do something about global warming initiatives will not detectably alter whatever the climate's going to do. And making energy more expensive is a regressive tax and stops economic development. I could talk a long time about this. As a state climatologist, I deal with economic development, but I'll just have one story of a manufacturer. He's moved to Alabama, has a manufacturing plant. His energy costs are roughly a third of his manufacturing costs. And he said, Alabama is our last stop in the United States. He said, if our energy prices go up, we will leave with all the jobs, all the manufacturing, and so on. And if these bills go through, he will leave. He said, we've already scouted out places in Mexico and China. And he says, you know, the ironic thing, of course, is when we go there, we will actually emit more than we are now in the U.S. to produce what we need to produce to sell and keep in business. So energy is it's just great stuff. Believe me, when you're without it, as anyone here knows, when your power goes out, do you miss it? Absolutely. Here. I had a really great high school physics teacher. He said, we should always begin our scientific assessments with this statement: at our present level of ignorance, we think we know. Nowhere is that more true than in the climate system. It is so complicated. It has millions of degrees of freedom. We can't predict it out a few days. How about years? How about decades and centuries? The problem is extremely complex. And in fact, when it comes to science, one of the things that you test with science, as I showed earlier, is you make a prediction. And then you test it with independent results. And as you can see, we have a long, long way to go. Our ignorance about the climate system is enormous. And our policymakers need to know that. Finally, my last slide. Two cavemen are talking. Something's just not right. Our air is clean. Our water is pure. We all get plenty of exercise. Everything we eat is organic and free range. And nobody lives past 30. That's the difference between energy and no energy. In the turn of the last century, the average American lived to be 47 years old. Now, I'm a grandparent, as was mentioned earlier, and I can tell from this room, a lot of you are. It's a wonderful place to be, let me tell you. You and I wouldn't be here, in all probability, to see our grandkids. I tell you, when they come up and grab you around the knees and say, I love you, Grandpa, and so on, that's an experience of life that is real. I assure you, it is real. And to have granted that to people like me and you because of energy technology, electrification, mobility, and all that, industrialization, is a gift. It's a wonderful, powerful thing that we have done in society. And so we must realize that energy is that which gives life, and that when there is a threat to life, we should attack it. But the evidence here shows that carbon dioxide being added to the atmosphere is way down on the list of threats. Let's go to some other threats. The water pollution, the air pollution we find in the other countries that kill millions of people a year. Those are environmental threats about which we can solve. So that's my time, and so thank you very much for having me here. Thank you.